Picture. Mindy McIntosh is with us, founder and CEO of McIntosh and Associates. Thank you for being with us now as we kick off a new quarter. How are you feeling about the market?
Well, thanks for having us. When we take a look at this macro view of the market, so many things are involved. We could really start out with even geopolitical or legislative risk, or even taking a look at industrial. Take a look at everything that we've even seen on Schwab Network today, talking about these younger individuals and things that we're seeing with AI and social media and just the ways that we're trying to get ahead today. We take a look at the US dollar and the extension, and we just really need to take a look at what's coming further this year. How do we actually see things happening in the housing market? And, we're all kind of seeing what's going to happen with inflation and these interest rates. And it's just this trickle-down effect that we need to be as prepared as possible when it comes to these macro effects in the market, and making sure that we have such a solid foundation plan and just working together like we do with our consumers day in and day out to ensure and instill that their plan is going to meet their needs, even with what we see happening as consumers with everything that's trickling down throughout this year, and even as we reflect on years past.
And Powell talking about inflation as well, just like you are, saying, look, emphasizing the need for more evidence that inflation is easing before cutting rates, and they're just not believers that that's actually happening yet, right? We don't see the cut.
Yeah. I don't see the cut yet, so I'm concerned with, are we actually going to see this happen? And if we don't, then what are we going to continue to see in the housing market? Depending too on where folks live. Like, we live here in a small community, so it's going to depend on what communities folks live in. We haven't seen a big trickle down effect on people out of work or anything of that nature with unemployment rates, but we still haven't seen it. I'm not a firm believer that it's going to be there, so we have to be so careful with what we're seeing with where we're investing funds, what type of market conditions that we're looking at, because when we take a look at the overall, we have to significantly see some changes. Otherwise, I even think when we talk about inflationary risk and interest rate risk, it just continues to trickle down with who's in the area, where's our dollar being spent, and then it all continues to come back, in my opinion, to this legislative risk and taxes and what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years with all that in play as well.
We were talking about the concerns of fiscal policy and debt and monetary policy, and they have to work together. Before I get to some of the ideas for investors, do you have any other big picture thoughts of things that you're watching? We mentioned inflation. We do have an election coming up. Any final thoughts on the macro picture?
I have some, even just as being a mom and a parent of, when we take a look at really big picture, to me, environmental, social, and governmental, we need to cut down for everyone, I feel, a little bit on screen time. So what are we seeing? Screen time, making sure that people are out socializing, getting more exercise, sunshine. These are all good ideas, even when we take a look of the macro just viewpoint of our health. And I do think that does entail that in matter of make sure that we're not too involved every single day of looking at every single piece of thing online or data or tablets, because we do need to be out still living life and trying to ease up and living our best life as possible. So I think even just as a macro view of that, instead of being so detailed and nitpicky, let's make sure that folks are being true to themselves and looking at the bigger picture even from that aspect. I think we'll even have a trickle down to the effect of how much that we're utilizing even our healthcare pieces and all of that. They all intertwine well more than what we think they do.
Yeah, well, good health and mental health is important, particularly because it hits the system, right? It'll hit healthcare, it'll hit families, it hits everything that goes into that. That being said, industrials is an area that you think stands out and may be well positioned for 2024. Why is that?
I think we need to be really careful when it comes to that, because fundamentals are great when we take a look at a strong demand, and low vacancy rates is always good. So people are traveling. I don't anticipate any major stress there. And really when it comes back to even taking a look at what we're doing as far as traveling, it sometimes even comes back to that social aspect. You're seeing that, not everyone's traveling weekly, of course, but we are definitely seeing travel is up. We see cost of airfare And then we see anywhere that we look social media-wise, someone is traveling and doing something of that nature. So I think that we're sitting good there. We just need to be careful when it rolls back in the financial side. I'm always giving the advice side to make sure they're working with their advisor, working with their financial account holder to make sure we're not going into more debt with the things that you're looking at doing today. So we need to make sure that we continue to utilize our tools, resources, to do the traveling, but really looking at a big picture from don't overspend and make sure that we're spending what we can today. And remember, when we take a look at interest rates and inflation, and even taxation later on the dollar, how is that all going to affect that trip today and years to come?
Yeah. You know, you mentioned ESG, and I think about the fact that we had an ESG fund on our network. Giannis Antetokounmpo from the Milwaukee Bucks launched that with Calamos Investments, and it was based on ESG. SROI was the ticker there.